David Chen stood at his mother's graveside, his hands empty and heart shattered, watching the woman who had raised him alone being lowered into the ground. But what he didn't know was that his wife, Lauren, was already meeting with divorce attorneys to leave him for his co-founder and best friend. Marcus, just 3 days after the funeral, David, a man who had just watched his tech startup implode after losing Series B funding, believed he had lost everything when Lauren handed him the divorce papers, with Marcus listed as her emotional support during his financial crisis, completely unaware that his mother had secretly amassed a $400 million fortune and left every penny to the son she had protected from the world. David was crushed by the double blow. Lauren moved into Marcus's luxury condo 2 weeks later, posting photos of her fresh start on social media while David slept on a friend's couch. Neither his ex-wife nor his former best friend knew that the inheritance documents were waiting for him at a law office across town. What happens when a man who has lost his company, his marriage, and his mother in the span of 3 weeks discovers he's worth $400 million? What did David do with his inheritance that would make his ex-wife question every decision she had ever made? And why would a betrayal so calculated, a divorce so swift, and a best friend's ultimate deception lead to a transformation so profound it would leave everyone who doubted him speechless? David Chen sat in the sterile waiting room of Wellington and Associates. His laptop bag, containing nothing but his dead company's final financial statements and the divorce papers that had been finalized the previous day, rested on his lap. The letter had arrived 3 days ago, formal, urgent, requesting his immediate presence for matters concerning the estate of Linda Chen. He almost ignored it. His mother had passed away 4 weeks earlier, and David assumed she left behind nothing but memories and medical debt from the small apartment in Queens where she had raised him. He had paid for her funeral by maxing out the last functioning credit card, the one the bankruptcy hadn't touched yet. The bankruptcy, Techflow, the SaaS platform he had built from the ground up, had collapsed 6 weeks before his mother's death. Their lead investor had pulled out at the last second, spooked by a competitor's PR campaign. Without the Series B funding, David couldn't make payroll, couldn't keep the servers running, couldn't survive. 5 years of work had evaporated in 72 hours. Then his mother got the diagnosis stage for pancreatic cancer. 3 weeks, maybe 4. He spent every moment by her hospital bed while his company died, and his wife grew increasingly distant. Lauren had stopped visiting after the first week. "It's too hard," she had said. "I can't watch this." Marcus had visited once. His co-founder, his best friend since Stanford, had stood in the hospital doorway for 10 minutes, checked his phone twice, and said, "Stay strong, man. We'll figure out the company stuff later." There was no company stuff to figure out. Techflow was dead. 3 days after the funeral, Lauren told him she wanted a divorce. She'd been staying at her sister's place. "I need space," she had said. "I can't handle your negative energy anymore." The papers arrived the next day, expedited, professional. Marcus's name appeared twice, once as a reference for her emotional state during the marriage's dissolution, and once as a witness to her signature. David had signed the papers in a coffee shop, alone, his hands not shaking because he had run out of tears. Mr. Chen, a woman in her 60s, appeared, elegant and "I'm Catherine Wellington. Thank you for coming. Please follow me." The office smelled of old money and new leather. Catherine gestured to a chair across from her antique desk and opened a file that looked impossibly thick for someone who had lived as simply as his mother. I understand. You've been through an extraordinarily difficult period, Catherine began, studying his face with an expression David couldn't decode. Your mother was a remarkable woman, David. She was also one of my most sophisticated clients for the past 32 years. David blinked. Client? My mum was an accountant at a small firm. She barely made your mother, Catherine interrupted gently. Was a financial genius who built a $400 million fortune through strategic investments in technology, real estate, and emerging markets. You are the sole beneficiary. David sat there, stunned, unable to comprehend what he had just heard. His mother, a quiet woman who had never let him know the extent of her wealth, had been playing a game in the background of his life that he never understood. And now, he was the one holding the cards. In a moment, everything changed. The shattered dreams of his business, the heartbreak of his wife's betrayal, and the silent death of his mother, all collided with the weight of an inheritance that would reshape everything. The $400 million wasn't just money, it was power, control, and the chance to rewrite his future, and the future of everyone who had doubted him. As David sat there in Catherine's office, the reality began to sink in. What he did next would be a reckoning that would shake his ex-wife's world to its core and change everything he once thought he knew about loyalty, love, and revenge. Everything transfers to you, effective IMIDI. The words didn't compute. David stared at the numbers on the document Catherine's slid across the desk. $400,000,000, his mother's signature. A date from 8 months ago when she could barely use her. This can't be real, he whispered. Catherine opened another folder. Your mother started with $700 in 1982. She had an extraordinary gift for identifying transformative technology before anyone else recognized its. She invested in Apple before Macintosh. She bought Amazon stock in 1997. She recognized Tesla's potential in 2010. She invested in Bitcoin when it was trading at $200. Why didn't she tell me? David's for. She wanted you to build your own path without the weight or corruption of wealth. She wanted to know you'd become someone she could be proud of, without money influencing your. She left you a letter. Catherine handed him an envelope with his mother's handwriting across Thefron. David's hands trembled as he opened it. My dearest David, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you're probably angry and confused. I kept this secret because I needed to know you'd become the man. I raised you to be without money corrupting your path. You chose innovation over easy money when you started TechFlow. You chose integrity when you could have cut corners. You chose compassion when you could for me instead of focusing on your penny. Now I need you to choose wisdom. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals it. The people in your life will show their true nature. Now, some loved you for potential utility. Some will regret abandoning you when you had nothing. Don't let their smallness make you small. Build something mindful with this gift. Help people who are struggling like we did. Remember, you were never poor. You always had the richness of character, integrity, and vision. There's a fund I've been building for years. $50 million dedicated to helping gentreners who face what you faced. Unexpected failure, despite doing everything right. I want you to run it. Help others the way I wish someone could have helped us. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Now go show the world what you are really capable of. Mum, David read it 4 times, tears streaming down his foos. Catherine sat quietly, letting him grieve in process. Finally, he looked. What happens now? Now we begin the transfer process. But first, she hesitated. Your mother included specific instructions about discretion. She was concerned about people who might suddenly become interested in you, and say your financial situation changed. David thought about Lauren, about Marcus, about the divorce papers finalized, with Lauren already posting photos with Marcus on Instagram. I understand, he said quietly. I'd like to keep this completely private, Catherine smiled. Your mother predicted you'd say exactly that. She also left very specific guidance about handling what's called fair weather relationships. She was remarkably perceptive about them in nature. David left the office 4 hours later with new accounts, a financial team, and a completely different reality. He walked through Manhattan in a daze, past the WeWork where Techflow used to have offices, past the apartment building he'd been evicted from last month, past Marcus' company headquarters, the competitor Marcus had started while Techflow was. His phone buzzed. Lauren, hey, know things ended badly. Marcus and I would love to take you to dinner. There are no hard feelings. We want to stay friends. David stared at Themisa. A month ago, this would have destroyed him. The casual cruelty. Now, with his mother's letter fresh in his mind and $400 million in his future, he felt something unexpected, clarity. He remembered Avori with new eyes. Lauren's complaints about money over the past 2 years. Her growing closeness with Marcus's Techflow struggled. The way she started comparing David's risky startup to Marcus' stable success. The Immerse dinner she'd had with Marquesta, she called networking. The way Marcus had offered to help financially, while subtly undermining David's confidence. They'd been planning this, while David sat by his mother's hospitality. Lauren and Marcus had been building their future together. They'd waited just barely long enough after their funeral to seem respectful. His mother had known. Somehow she'd known. David walked to Bryant Park and sat on a bench, watching the city move around him. He could do anything, buy Marcus's company and shut it down, hire the most vicious lawyers, and make Lauren regret every choice, fund a competitor to crush Marcus' business. But his mother's words echoed, "Don't let their smallness make you small." He thought for a long time. Then he made a decision that would change everything. David wasn't going to tell anyone about money. Not yet. He was going to watch and learn who people really were when they thought he had nothing. He was going to build something his mother would be proud of. And when the time was right, when Lauren and Marcus reveled exactly who they'd become, he'd show them what real success looked like. Not revenge, justice. David spent the next 2 weeks living in his friend Jake's spare room, pretending his life was falling apart while secretly meeting with Catherine and her team. They set up trusts, investment strategies, and what Catherine called strategic positioning. His mother's notes were incredibly. She'd anticipated everything. The betrayal, the opportunism themament, when people would start circling back. Techflow's death was real enough. David couldn't save it, and he decided not to use his inheritance for that. The company was gone. His team had scattered to other jobs. The technology they'd built had been acquired by a competitor for pennies. Marcus' company, ironically David, his former CTO, Jennifer Cotham, at a coffee shop. I heard about you and Lauren. Man, I'm so sorry. Amphetamine with your mum. She hugged him. That's brutal. How are you holding up day by day? If you need anything, job references, connections, whatever, just, you were a great CEO. Techfla failed because of bad luck and worse timing, not because of you. Her loyalty meant more than she'd ever know. On Thursday, Lauren texted again. Marcus Reale wants to clear the air. We are having a small gathering Saturday at Hispla. Please come. We're all adults. David stared at the message with something close to fascination. They wanted him at their celebration. The relationship built on his grief and failure so they could feel better about themselves, so they could tell their friends, look how mature we all are. David's fine with it. He texted back, sure, what time? Saturday arrived with spring rain. David dressed in jeans on his Stanford hoodie, the same clothes shed worn during Techfla's all-nighters, and took the subway to Marcus' building in Tribeca. Thebling screamed money, the kind Marcus loved to display. The elevator opened to Marcus's penthouse. Electronic music drifted from inside. House music, sophisticated, the kind Marcus claimed love, but never actually listened to. David walked in. Marcus appeared immediately, all white teeth and practiced enthusiasm. He wore designer athleisure that probably cost more than David's funeral expenses. Bro, so glad you came. Takes a real man to do this. David shook his hand, noting how Marcus's grip was slightly too firm, establishing dominance. Wouldn't miss it. Lauren emerged from the kitchen, stunning in a dress David had never seen. She'd lost weight. Her hair was different. She looked expensive now. David, she kissed his cheek, a gesture so familiar and alien it made his stomach turn. Thank you for coming. Know, this is weird, but I really think can all move forward positively. Absolutely, David said, his voice steady. You both look happy. And dated. That was the thing that struck him most. Lauren glowed with satisfaction and Marcus radiated triumph. They'd won. They had each other. They had money, they had success, and David, broke, grieving. Failed entrepreneur David Washer to validate their choices by accepting defeat gracefully. Other guests arrived, tech brothers, venture capitalists, successful founders. Marcus introduced David as my co-founder. With that same heavy hand on his shoulder, Lauren played perfectistus, occasionally touching Marcus' arm with ownership. David watched it all with detachment. He sipped beer. Marcus had expensive wine but served guest craft IPAs and listened to conversations about valuations and exits. Nobody asked about his mother. Nobody asked about his... Then Sarah Kim arrived, one of Silicon Valley's most successful angel, a woman worth billions who'd made her fortune backing moonshots. David had met her once, years ago, at a pitch competition. Marcus, Sarah's voice cut through the noise. Love what you're doing with the Techfla acquisition. Smart play. Marcus' smile was pure ego. Thanks, sometimes. You have to recognize when someone else's failure creates your opportunity. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about expansion capital, Always fundraising. Sarah laughed. That's what I like about you. Relentless. Her eyes landed on David. Don't I know you? David Chun, David said, shaking her hand. We met at Techstar competition 3 years ago, Chen. Sarah's Wait, Linda Chen was your mother. The room went quiet. Marcus and Lauren both turned, confused. Yes, David said simply. Sarah's interior demon had changed. I heard about her. I'm devastated. Your mother was legendary. She invested in my first fund back in 2005 when nobody else would touch it. Gave me $2 million and told me to trust my instincts. Changed my entire life. David felt his chest tighten. She never mentioned that she wouldn't. Linda didn't invest for recognition. She invested in people she believed in. Sarah studied David with new intensity. Are you working on anything new? I'm figuring things out. Tech flow was a learning experience. Linda told me, once it failure teaches more than success ever could. Sarah pulled out her phone. Give me your number. I'd like to talk. I'm looking to back second-time founders, people who've learned from us. Your mother's son is someone I'd want to hear from. Marcus materialized at David's elbow. Sarah, you don't need to. David's going through a transition right now. Financial issues, personal stuff. I'm sure he's not really in a position to. I'm asking David, not you, Sarah said coolly. And something in her tone made Marcus step back. David gave Sarah his number. They talked for 30 minutes about his mother, about Tejflow's failure, about lessons learned and pass forward. The party continued around them, but David felt shift. Marcus kept glancing over, his smile strained. Lauren hovered nearby, listening with an expression David couldn't quite read. When Sarah left, she squeezed David's hand. Your mother saw something in me when I hadn't. I'd like to pay that forward. Call me next week. After she left, Marcus poured himself a heavy whiskey. That was random. Sarah usually doesn't give anyone that much attention. Shek knew, my mum, David said simply. Loren touts David's arm. I didn't know your mother was connected to people like Sarah. Kim, my mum, knew a lot of people. She worked in finance for 40 years. But seed was planted. David could see it in Lauren's eyes. In the way Marcus reached him. They were wondering. David left early, thanking them for their hospitality. As he walked out, her heard Marcus's voice. Lower now. Did Yauka know his mother knew Sarah Kim? That could have been useful when we were. The door closed on Theris. Monday morning, Sarah Kim called. They met at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn. Far from Marcus' world of glass tower sand bottle service. I looked into TechFlow, Sarah said, sliding a folder across the table. Solid product, good team, strong early traction. But you'll fail because your lead investor got cold feet, not because the vision was wrong. That's generous. It's accurate. Your mother taught me that the best investments aren't about avoiding. They're about backing people. Learn from it. She opened Here's what I see. A founder who bootstrapped a product market fit, who prioritized team culture over growth metrics, who made ethical choices that cost him but built real loyalty. Your mother would call that character. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you build something new. I'll back you with $5 million. No strings, just belief. Not because you're Linda's son, because you're someone who learned what matters. David studied her carefully. Why would you do this? Because your mother invested in me when nobody else would. And she taught me that wealth is responsibility also. Sarah smiled slightly. Because Marcus Brooks represents everything wrong with tech. Extractive, opportunistic, taking credit for others. Your mother told me once, Sharid, about people like him. She said that. She said a lot of things. She saw people clearly. Sarah leaned back, so interested. David thought about his mother's letter, about building something meaningful, about not letting bitterness poison him, but still standing up for what mattered. Yet Hesed, but I want to do it right. This sustainable growth, real value creation, team equity, not just building to flip. Sarah extended her hand. Your mother would be proud. Over the next 3 months, David built quietly. He assembled a small team, people who'd been loyal during TechFlow's collapse, people who believed in building things that mattered. They worked from a modest office in Brooklyn, funded by but Catherine had other plans, too. She introduced David to people on his mother's list. 50 entrepreneurs, investors, and leadership's mother had quietly supported over 30 years. Each one knew Linda Chen. Each one grieved her. Each one wanted to honor her by supporting her son. They formed something unprecedented. The Linda Chen Collective, a network of values-driven investors committed to backing founders who prioritized impact over extraction. David became the coordinator, the bridge between his mother's philosophy and a new generation of builders. News spread slowly, then all at once. TechCrunch ran a feature, The Secret Investor, Linda Chen's $400, her fortune, and her mission to change how tech works. The article detailed her investment philosophy, her incredible returns, her focus on character over David was interviewed. He talked about his mother's values, her belief in patience, her focus on building lasting value. He never explicitly mentioned his inheritance, but the implications were clear. Marcus schooled. David let it go to voicemail. Lauren sent a long email about mistakes and growth and second chances. David deleted it without finishing. He saw them 6 weeks later at Tech Week, a major industry conference. The Linda Chen Collective was announcing a $50 million fund for time. Founders who'd failed despite doing everything right. David was on the main stage. Lauren saw him first. Her face went white. Marcus turned, his expression cycling through confusion, recognition, and something like horror. After his panel, David was surrounded by people. Founders seeking advice, investors wanting to collaborate, journalists asking questions, but he saw Lauren and Marcus hovering at the edge. Finally, they got close. David, Lauren's voice was thin. I didn't know you'd be speaking. Representing my mother. We're doing important work. Marcus' jaw clenched. Your mother's the one with 400 million in assets. Yes, she built it over 30 years. I run it now. The reality crashed into them visibly. The rumors they'd heard, the TechCrunch article. Sarah, Kim Sudden, interest. The network of powerful people who knew Linda Chen. You inherited, Marcus started. I inherited me mother's life's work and her values, yes. Lauren's hand went to her throat. You let us think. I didn't let you think anything. You saw what you wanted to see. Neither of you ever asked about my mother's life, beyond how her illness can convince you. That's not fair, Marcus said, his voice rising. You deliberately hid. I lived my life. You deliberately showed me who you were when you thought I had nothing. Thank you for that. It was educational. Sarah Kim appeared at David's side. David, they're ready for the fun announcement. Coming, David turned back to Lauren and Marcus' own last time. My mother taught me, Thatcher actor is what you do when nobody's. You both showed me yours perfectly. I hope you build the life Yao wanted, just without me in it. He walked away. Behind him, he heard Lauren's sharp breath. Marcus muttered curse. On stage, David announced the Second Chance Fund. $50 million dedicated to founder Schwad. Failed for reasons beyond their control. He talked about his mother's vision, a belief that failure was a teacher, her understanding that the best entrepreneurs were often those who'd learned humility. The applause was deep. Afterward, a young founder approached, nervous, maybe 26, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Mr. Chen, I'm Michael Torres. I built a fintech startup that collapsed when our bank partner went under, lost of everything. Your mother never knew me. But this fund, it's exactly what people like me need, a second chance. David felt his chest tighten. Tell me about your vision. They talked for an hour. Michael's ideas were solid. His lessons learned real. His hunger to build something meaningful, genuine. Apply to the fund, David said. We're looking for exactly this. When Michael left, Catherine appeared. Your mother would be so proud. I hope so. I know. So you chose building over bitterness, purpose over revenge, elevation over destruction. That's who she raised. David looked around the conference at founders hustling, investors evaluating the endless churn of ambition and vision. He thought about Lauren and Marcus, probably still He felt no bitterness, just clarity, just purpose. Catherine hesed, I want to expand the fund. I want to focus on founders who sacrifice something meaningful for family. People chose care over career like I did. Your mother allocated resources for exactly that. $20 million in what shekelled the Caregiver Founders Fund for people who put family first. Of course she did. Of course she'd thought of everything. David smiled. Then let's get started. Across the venue, Marcus and Lauren left early. David saw them go and felt nothing but peace. They'd shown him who they were. He'd shown them what he'd bone, and he'd built something his mother would be proud of. That was all that mattered. 6 months later, the Linderchin Collective had funded 37 companies. Michael Torres's fintech startup was thriving. The Caregiver Founders Fund had given second chances to 15 entrepreneurs who'd sacrificed careers for family. David stood at his mother's grave on what would have been her 75th day. He brought flowers, simply owns, the kind she loved. We did it, Mum, he said quietly. We're building something that matters, something you'd be proud of. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Chen, I'm a founder who lost everything caring for me sick partner. Just saw the Caregiver Fund crying as I write this. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for your mother. David read it twice. Tears in his eyes. This was what wealth was for, not revenge. Not proving anything to people who'd never mattered. Purpose, impact, honoring the woman who'd built everything so he could do something mindful with it. He looked at his mother's headstone, at her name etched in simple granite. I love you, Mum, thank you for everything. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees, and for just a moment, David could almost hear her voice. I'm proud of you, David. Now keep building,